While every movie does have cliches, here are some of the absolute worst movie tropes and cliches of all time. Hacking scenes in any action movie are almost always incredibly stupid, but the worst of it has to be when the entire group's just talking about, oh my god, there's no way we'll ever get into this system, and then the hacker turns around and says, I'm in. I swear every action movie in the early 2000s and 2010s had a scene exactly like this. And another one that drives me crazy is when a character says enhance something, and they take an image that looks this pixelated and it automatically becomes the most crystal clear 4K image you've ever seen in your life. That's not how anything works. We're in the big year 2024 and we're still getting movies consistently using the they're right behind me, aren't they joke, and it looks like Minecraft is going to give us another one next year with this Jason Momoa scene. Don't forget Thor Love and Thunder having the awful they're right behind me joke, and Borderlands earlier this year just had a very similar one. I don't know how this isn't illegal to write into your script at this point. Hollywood hangup is one of my biggest pet peeves of all time. If you don't know what it is, it's when a character picks up the phone or hangs up without saying hello or goodbye. This happens in so many movies. This is something actually taught to screenwriters for them to cut out unnecessary hello and goodbyes on the phone, but I'm sorry, the one extra millisecond it takes to add in a little bit of realism would not take anybody out of the movie. One of the worst has to be the villain monologue. Now, not all of them, because some villain monologues are honestly some of the greatest movie scenes of all time, but particularly when the monologue is when they could defeat the hero, but they instead waste time explaining their entire plan. Then they end up losing because they were just talking to the hero and explaining how evil they are. I think the worst offender of this has to be Barty Crouch Jr. in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire when he finally reveals, hey, I was Mad Eye all along. He has Harry in the room alone and could easily kill him, but no, he talks for like 15 minutes explaining the entire movie to Harry Potter. There's a ton of bad cliches around deaths in movies, so let's start getting into some of them, starting off with anytime you're watching a war movie and a pretty unimportant side character starts talking about their family or child back home. They start talking about that and they're not an important character. There's almost a 99% chance that that character's not living to see the next 20 minutes of the film. They're almost always killed off for dramatic effect. Fake deaths in movies are becoming a real problem now. This is something that can definitely be done well and really add to a movie, but it happens so much in modern blockbusters that half the time a character dies, you just know they're gonna come back at this point. Like Jim Gordon in The Dark Knight is a perfect example of a great fake death because they don't drag it on for too long and it's actually done for a great reason in the movie. It has a good reason to happen. Star Wars recently has gotten so out of hand with the amount of fake deaths that almost any time a character is in a dangerous situation and looks like they actually died on screen, I actually don't believe that they're dead now. Like we had Chewbacca in the Star Wars sequels getting absolutely blown up, but oh no, he's actually fine, he was in the other ship. Star Wars TV shows are doing this left and right. You had the Grand Inquisitor and Sabine both getting stabbed with lightsabers, something that used to kill people in the past, but oh, actually they're both surviving it now. Obviously you have the super horrendous ones such as Palpatine somehow returning and being cloned or whatever on earth happened in that movie. Different cliches surrounding deaths that also drives me crazy is when the lovable side character just gets killed off to raise the stakes of the movie without them having to kill off any of the main characters. Like yes, I know it happens in the books too, but Fred Weasley's death in the Harry Potter movies just gets jumped over so quickly and it feels absolutely useless in the end. Same thing with Dobby. I feel like at least that has a little bit more emotional stakes, but I hate watching these lovable side characters just get killed off. Coulson's another example of this and is made even worse in these franchises where so many other characters have fake out deaths and come back, and I guess he kind of did because he came back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but does anybody really care about that show? I don't think so. Stranger Things might just be the worst example of this though, because I hate how they always introduce a new character in the season and then pretty much kill them off by the end of the season instead of killing off one of the main cast, or just keep everybody alive. And speaking of Stranger Things, I'm keeping it up here because it's another great example of the next one. Any movie that has kids or teenagers witness some absolutely horrible thing like some monster taking their friend or someone getting killed, they go and tell an adult or the police and they're just like, oh, you stupid kid, you don't know what you're talking about, and completely disregard them. Like, I'm sorry, if someone comes up to you and says, hey, my friend just got abducted by some monster from a different dimension or something, you have to take them somewhat seriously even if you don't believe them. You can't just be like, hey, go away, you stupid kid. Another one that can be done well, but it's just been so overdone at this point, is when the hero gets talking to from the villain and he says the classic, you and I are not so different. Like, I love the example up here. I think this works really well, but now almost every villain is just like an evil version of the hero and it gets so repetitive so quickly. Speaking of Spider-Man, both the first Raimi Spider-Man and the Andrew Garfield ones are super guilty of this next one, which is anytime characters and their family are super hard strapped for cash and supposed to be broke, but they're living in a house that costs like at least $500,000 Again, both those versions of Spider-Man, Uncle Ben and Aunt May, are supposed to be dirt broke, and these houses, if you don't know, in New York City would be going for at least probably $500,000, if not even more. They could sell this thing and live off it perfectly. And actually, now that I think about it, the MCU Spider-Man movies are also guilty of this, because the one that Aunt May originally has and this one that Spider-Man moves into at the end of No Way Home would be costing you like $12,000 minimum in New York, if not like $20,000 a month if you had this much space. Anytime in any movie you have a woman character like beat up some guy or fix a car, and then they turn around to the group of dudes that can't believe what she just does, and she throws out the line, I have brothers, it makes me physically cringe every single time. It's just so bad. Love triangles are one of those things that are better left out of most movies. I understand there's some romance films that it's like the entire core of, but you have some other movies like The Hunger Games where they just up it so much from what it is in the books, and it's just so unbelievably cringy and takes you away from the actual film's plot. Action movies are absolutely full of cliches, but one that drives me crazy is when the characters are jumping through glass windows or walls of some kind and they don't get a single scratch even after landing in all the glass shards and rolling around in it. Like, I'm sorry, just have one little scratch at least. And the classic action movie trope of the one character being surrounded by like 10 different bad guys waiting to beat him up, and they all start attacking him one by one and getting taken down when they could just attack as a group and easily take down the main guy. And it's even worse when it's in a movie like Batman or something and you're dealing with this superhero and they still wait to take their turns to fight. I'm like, what are we doing here? I also can't stand when two characters are in a car and the guy driving is just not paying attention whatsoever, completely looking to the side talking to the other person, and something terrible happens because of it. Like, you know, you can actually talk to the person next to you while also looking at the road, right? If you got on the way to this point and you haven't hit the like button, make sure to do that and let me know in the comments what your least favorite movie cliche is, and tap down below to watch a video where I go over all the current movie franchises that definitely need to stop making sequels at this point.